Welcome to episode 121.
COVID, 5 years out.
Join us as we discuss the early stages of COVID.
How things have been unfolding in the recent past and currently, and how our life and our magical practices have been altered.
Stay tuned. Welcome to the Witchy Wit podcast, where we look at life through a witchy lens. I'm Kimberlyn.
I'm Leilani.
At Witchy Wit, we explore current events,
Ideas,
music and books,
and experiences in ways that recognize energy and life in everybody and everything.
We are both real witches.
And we bring two real perspectives through the lens of our different ages,
Races,
and backgrounds.
with a healthy skepticism for what we have been told is true. Our conversations are raw, candid, and vulnerable.
Join us as we cast a spell to uncover what we each know is true in our intuitive, witchy selves.
Hello there. Kimberlyn here, letting you know that while this episode is airing in December 2025, it was actually recorded in July and then languished on my hard drive. So it will refer to events and episodes that took place a while ago. However, we also felt it deals with important issues that we didn't want to just drop. So we dusted it off, and here you have it. Enjoy. Welcome to episode 121.
COVID, 5 years out. Okay.
5 years after flattening the curve. Remember that?
Oh,
Yeah. So anyway, we'll talk more about that as you can tell. But before we talk about COVID 5 years out, why don't we talk about us right now?
Right now.
And why don't I start? I don't know if I think I've said this a number of times, but just in case you've missed it, I've retired. Yay! And for many years, I knew I suffered from stress. And I just assumed that when I retired, I wouldn't be suffering from stress anymore because many of the things that caused my stress would be reduced. And that is indeed the case. And now I realize, so maybe I was suffering from stress, but I realized I'm a very anxious person. I didn't realize how anxious I was until I had nothing to really stress about. But I was still feeling the same way. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense to me.
Oh my gosh. So I realized this when I've been away, all wonderful things, family vacation, and then I went to an early music workshop, and I've just been scratching like my neck. And not half the time, oh my God, I'm feeling stressed, let's scratch. No, I mean, most of the time it's not that. What happens is I start thinking about something I have to do, and then like a minute in I realize I've started scratching, and I mean it's become a thing. Like I'm scarred. I mean it's really gotten bad, and I'm seeing dermatologists and stuff, and I realized that I have some underlying anxieties that I need to address. I'm not sure, I've been talking to people. I don't know if I'm going to do it like with therapy or just continue with some of the healing modalities that I'm using, but it was just an eye-opener to discover that when I thought I'd put down all this stuff, that there was still a lot of stuff I was carrying. Anyway, so that's what's going on with me. So it's not necessarily like the most positive news, but it's good to know good stuff to know, because that helps me to then take next steps.
Before we move on to my check-in, can we take a moment?
Sure.
I want to say, first of all, thank you for sharing. Second of all, I really find it really vulnerable that you would share that. Not only to me, but the fact that you're like sharing it on the podcast.
I know. I thought, I feel so seen. Thank you for acknowledging that, because I almost didn't. And I said, well, what's the purpose of our doing? It's all great to say all these, I feel like we're doing this and raising the vibration. But, you need, for my shiny parts to shine, I have to also let that shadow be there. And so, this is a part of life. So, yeah. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. I'm not a doctor or a psychologist or a counselor or anything.
You don't even play one on TV?
I don't even play one on TV. And I know that, so I'm not like diagnosing you. That's not my job, literally, or socially, or friendship-wise, relationally. I do struggle with body-focused repetitive behavior, like picking and scratching. And I find that I can be like embarrassing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You can tell people, oh, I have a digestive issues, and people are like, okay, yeah, gotcha,
yeah.
or I was hungover, I was stoned, or
yeah.
But you just say, I scratch a lot, and people like edge away.
Yeah,
I don't know if they do because I've never actually said it. So, but that's what I have in my head. Yeah. Thank you. It's something I didn't want to share, but I figured if I can't share it with you and our 5 listeners,
right. My coworkers actually know that I'm stressed if they see me with my hand up like this, because I start scratching.
Could you tell everybody what you were doing?
Yeah, I lift like my hand up like towards the center of my back, and if you look, I have like some scars.
Yes. Oh my god.
Because it's like and it's not, and like the thing that whenever I don't talk about it very often, but I've had some beloveds struggle with things like this, and it's like different than self-harm because I'm not like cutting or hurting myself. It's a body focused repetitive behavior that I'm doing because I'm anxious. So it's very different from self-harm. So not to make this about me, but I just wanted to really honor you.
I appreciate that because I was kind of going into that, falling down to that spiral of it being self-harm. You're doing like I'm doing it deliberately or whatever, so thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. So it's not about, thank you for sharing you to help me to understand me.
I love you so much, and I'm blown away by your courage to share.
Oh,
because I just want to say, like, I never shared that with you, and I'm sitting here, and then you said it, and I'm like, fuck, she's courageous, because like,
no, I'm not. I'm scared, but like, and I have to say, this is where I've learned something from you. You said that if you're scared about something, that's kind of often your guidance to do it. So I was scared about doing it, and I remembered you saying that. So your little face floated past my eyes, and your voice kind of like echoed in my head, and I was like, shut up, bitch. And then I did it because it makes sense. So enough about me. What do you think about me? No. What's going on in your life?
Well, I think a couple episodes ago I shared that one of my goals over the summer was to build a retaining wall in my backyard.
Yes.
And how I was putting it off. And then I decided that like my goal was just going to be one stone, and that it kind of tapped back into that energy from the Camino, which was literally 1 year ago, this summer. And I started with a single stone. I made that goal. I did it, and then I got about a fifth of the way done, and I was feeling really proud because I don't know what I'm doing. I've done some research online. I can do hard things. I can lift heavy things. I can dig in my yard. I can do these things. So I'm like really proud of that energy. Well, I had a really good friend of mine who lives in rural Missouri. I've known him since I was like 18 or 19. So he knows where all the bodies are buried in my life. He came in to visit, and he stayed with me for a week. And he walked out into my backyard and looked at the retaining wall and said, "You built that backwards." And he is correct. I built it backwards.
Oh, wait, what does that mean? It's a wall, does it have two sides?
Yes. Because if one is retaining,
right,
you're holding
in something.
Well, my retaining wall
is holding things out. It's a protective wall.
Right? It's like, that's what I think. It's like maybe I'm just like got some protective energy.
Oh my gosh. Oh, well. Did you use mortar?
No.
Oh, good.
No, because I didn't get that far.
Okay.
I was just putting down the base layer and then like one layer on top of it, so I hadn't gotten to the adhesive phase. Thank goodness. But it's backwards. So just like listeners, if you are unfamiliar with retaining walls, like the stones stack on each other, but each stone that stacks on top stacks like an inch or two, or depending on how big the stones are, backwards. So that if you were, let's say that I'm standing on like higher ground and I'm looking down at the retaining wall to the level below, it would slope slightly out from me.
Right.
Well, my retaining wall is switched like a cliffside. So like the dirt and the things it's supposed to retain, if they ever moved with force, which is the point of a retaining wall, it would knock it over.
thank you so much. Talk about being vulnerable. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
But here's the thing. So, may I comment on your experience?
Yes, please. I'm open.
So the beauty of this whole experience that I see is you had a friend who came in and was able to help and, to share some information with you, which was fun. And I'm sure, well, maybe not fun at the moment, but which is nice. Okay. Which is nice and good for him and somewhat good for you. And you hadn't gotten that far before you discovered this. And even if you had gotten this far and mortared it and had to take it apart, which is the pain in the ass, ask me how I know, you still started a wall on your own as a human being, and human beings make mistakes. But you started a retaining wall. I mean, think about it.
I think that's how I'm going to phrase it.
Yeah.
I started a retaining wall. I didn't say correctly, and I didn't say I finished it, but I started a retaining wall.
You create, yeah. We'll see how. I mean, you. It's totally up to you how far you want to do with this, but good on you. I mean, that you, like you said, baby steps. You did one at a time. You did as far as you got, and then you got some feedback, some constructive feedback.
Yes.
Which apparently was very, very helpful.
Yeah.
And now, do you know what your next steps might be?
Yeah, he like has done this stuff professionally, so he actually helped me redo my plan.
Oh, okay.
So in a way, I have like a more professional plan now. So
which is nice.
Yeah, and he's like, "What's your vision?" I'm like, "I really want to have one." So
are you going to build up soil behind the wall, or is there soil there that you're just going to smooth out?
Yeah, yes. The idea is that I would build the wall and then add the soil. Mm-hmm. So it's still really exposed. So it really is like, it'll be easy to undo.
Yeah.
But it's just more like, I look at it now and I'm like, duh.
Yeah, but again, how many times have you built a retaining wall?
I helped my sister build one in her backyard when my niece was a baby. So
you helped someone who was telling you what to do.
Yes. And my niece has graduated college with a double major. So
like decades ago.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, does that kind of put this in perspective?
For sure.
Yeah. For sure. Which I'm sure you didn't need, but,
It's definitely like a humility check.
Yes,
and an opportunity to laugh at myself. And an opportunity for me to check and see how my partner would respond. And he was very gracious because he really could have ribbed me. Now, my friend ribbed me a lot, but that's his job.
No, that's his job. That's, yeah. So, and he ribbed you and he helped you to reconstruct the idea. So, wow. Well, you know what? Thank you for the update. It's like life, isn't it? Yeah. Right? I mean, sometimes our retaining wall type structures in our lives are just kind of backwards, right?
Right.
And someone points it out to us, and we're able to move forward with that information.
I guess it would be like the tower card if I chose to keep going.
You'd have a retaining tower.
A retaining tower.
Well, a protective retaining tower. A retaining tower that wouldn't retain anything. except the huge swelling of the storm that would bowl you over.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well. Well, congratulations on your progress up to this point on your retaining wall.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As we move into the next section of our episode, where we talk about COVID-19 5 years out, could I share a little bit about why I wanted to suggest this to you?
Yeah.
So I really wanted to suggest that we do this episode, not because I find a lot of joy in looking back at that time period. It still feels, has a lot of feels for me. And I feel like as we move forward in time, I am constantly struck by how transformational that time period was, both for me as a person, but also institutionally, in our circle, relationally. Even at the grocery store, when I look down and I see like old scuffed up stickers that show how you're supposed to stand 5 feet apart, like it's still this symbol of that time period. So I wanted to offer it to you for us to talk about it, not as a way of passing judgment or shaming or anything, because I know I got a lot of stuff wrong. I think I did a lot of stuff with compassion, but like, I'm not here to really shame anything, but just to reflect on the impact and that it had and still is having, and as a way of saying it is not over. Like, we didn't say after COVID-19. We chose 5 years out because there is not an after. It's just a still.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. And we've touched on it in various points in other episodes, but the actual focus on it, I think we might have thought about it like 3 years out or something. And it was just so, nah. I mean, because we were still in the throes of it, and I'm not saying that we're not still, but I think, many people have kind of figured out what that means for them. I mean, well, whether they're right or wrong, but so it's at least easier to talk about. And what also reminded me of that was in our episode that's going to be our last episode, 112, a witching year. A lot of her activities happened the way they did because it was during COVID. And so that kind of, that refreshed it in my mind as a topic, as an episode.
You have, I can really only think of 2 times you've been very firm and directive with me. One was about bath mats on the floor.
I thought about you recently on that.
And the second was when I suggested that we do this episode, and you were like, no.
I don't remember that.
You're so rare. You're so rarely like, even whenever you're firm, I don't feel spiky energy from you. I feel firm energy from you. But bath mat and COVID 5 years out was a definite, and I was like, that's fine. Not a I will pick up the bath mat, and we will not do this episode because I love you and I respect that.
Yeah, we'll do 4 years. Okay, maybe 5 years. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, I'm glad we're doing it now because there's a whole, like you said, some spiky energy. There's a whole lot of like squicky energy around this for me. So, kind of like the admitting about the scratching, this just approaching it, even though I still don't really, really, really want to. I think it's good and healthy. So, maybe we can just, I'd like to just kind of throw out a couple of memories. Okay. So, I remember it was spring break, and so two things that I was doing a trial membership at Orange Theory. Are you familiar with it? And no, it wasn't Orange Theory. I'm sorry, it was something else before that. I can't remember, but it was in that same location. It was a gym, but it's a gym that has like, you get a little flash drive and you put it in the machine, and so all your stuff's on there. You don't have to think.
Oh, nice.
I don't know. I kind of like to have a little bit more control over the whole thing, but anyway. And I remember I had a week-long trial run, and we got the information that places were going to shut down. And I remember at the time thinking, wait, does that mean when we start back up, will I get the rest of my free membership? Will I get my other 3 days?
Oh, that's so sweet. And so representative, though, of like the way I looked at things too.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, like well, okay, well, sure, but am I going to get my? And then I remember, we delayed the start of school. We were on spring break when this happened, and they said we were going to start a week later, and during that time they gave us workshops on Zoom, etc. I had actually done some work on Zoom already. So it wasn't a big issue for me, but just to figure out how the educational program was working and et cetera. So it was interesting because I honestly thought that this is just like a bump in the road, that okay, it's messing up this semester. But then if I thought about it, I don't even if I even thought that this would be an issue. That in the summer we'll look back this and laugh, and will we have to extend another week, or all of those kind of questions were going through my head. But the last thing I ever thought was that it would last as long as it did. And so I was just thinking of this being really like a 2-week, because that I remember hearing that 2 or 3 weeks to flatten the curve, so that anyway, I'm not even going to get into that, but And so I just remember, and I think that for a lot of people it was going to be that, they were just thinking this really short term, kind of bizarre short term national emergency. Yeah. So that it was just a really strange feeling for me. What about with you? Do you remember?
It felt strange too. I think my privilege as someone who lives in the United States really reared its head in that my life largely goes unchanged no matter the happenings in the world, or even the country. Like there's flooding, there was major flooding last week in Kerr County, which is minutes down the road from us. And if I wasn't paying attention to things on the news or stuff, I wouldn't know, or other than driving by the P. Terry's line last night, because there was a fundraiser for them.
Gotcha.
But other than that, I just wouldn't really even know. And I think that that's really true. So hearing people start to say things the week before spring break about there's this thing going on, I remember thinking like, oh, that's pretty bad, but also really not understanding the magnitude because of this privilege that we have in this, I think I have in this part of the world. And then just being totally unprepared emotionally with my house, with my job. I work in public school, so like we had no idea what we were doing, and I work particularly with at-risk kids, and so like they don't have computers, they don't have internet, so it was just a real cluster.
Yeah.
And I have this memory of our circle, and I don't exactly, my memory is foggy, but also my experience at the time, everything was just so foreign and weird and scary at worst and weird at best. And some members of our circle gathered on the property that we have ritual, and we had gathered outside with our chairs. Like, I don't even know if we knew what social distancing was at that time or how far apart we were supposed to be, but our chairs were far apart, and we were out by our pomegranate tree, and somebody suggested that we sing, and we started to, and then one of the circle members voiced very loudly like that she had heard that it was spread through singing.
Yes.
And that, or spread through our breath, and that singing would make it really big, and that we really needed to be careful. And I just remember at that, and actually she was right, at the moment I didn't know anything. But I just remember thinking, like, feeling that fear and that unknown, and also feeling safe in community, and feeling this, like, but it's safe here, but also this, and like that pull of that tug of war between like my lived reality versus this thing that I don't know.
Oh yeah, yes, and that was before we knew a whole lot of things. Not that we know a whole lot more now, but whatever. But yeah. That I'd forgotten about that, and yes, because we actually were going to do a ritual the night that everything shut down,
Yes.
and we canceled it, and then someone else held like a small Zoom ritual a week later. That it wasn't the same, same ritual, but I just remember, just trying to feel that difference, right? Yeah.
What an interesting, looking back on it, what an interesting experience. This is generalization. For us all to not know what was going on, and to be inventing things in all areas of my life as I go. At work, spiritually, relationship-wise, friendship-wise. Like, we were all just, like, figuring it out.
Right. Yeah. No, I know. And I remember for a period of time there, this sense of humanity kind of, banding together for common good, for a hot minute. but yeah, and that sense that, okay, we can do this, that, yeah, we're not used to doing this, other, like you said, we're extremely privileged, and we're not used to not doing everything we want to do when we want to do it. But let's see what happens. And that sense of, at least that first couple of weeks, I'd forgotten about that. And whether that optimism was misplaced or, that's neither here nor there, but that feeling of, okay, this is what we need to do. Let's do this.
Do you remember that there was like a certain time when you were supposed to go outside and stand on your front porch and bang pans?
Yes.
To like thank hospital workers. That was nice.
And I remember there were videos of people in Rome out on their balconies all singing and, things like that. Yeah. There were some really wonderfully uplifting moments early on. So we talk about those memories. And we could go into all of the negative things and the divisiveness and all of that, but I don't think that that's a good use of our time. People can do that. I'd love to talk a little bit more about some of the learnings, some of the ways in which you mentioned earlier how transformational that period was. And I'd like to maybe talk about that a little bit.
I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is this like new perspective on ableism. Particularly in mask wearing. There's a very large gas station chain in our area that people go bananas over. And I remember that I stopped there and like we were supposed to be wearing masks at the time. And a man walked in unmasked with a gun. And this is Texas, so you can open carry. And I remember being terrified because of the politicalization of the mask and the juxtaposition of the mask with the gun. And and then just considering like I have a family member that has long COVID, and placing that next to my family member and people who are incarcerated or people who love someone and want to be around someone who is not in good health. And so just this feeling of this mask being, for me, a simple thing that I could do for myself, but also for others.
Yeah, when you speak of ableism, I get what you're saying about the mask. I think what I get from this is a better sense of all the different isms. And so like we talk about people maybe with respiratory or I think they called them comorbidities or whatever, which is a morbid term, but anyway, literally it is a morbid term, but so and then the ways in which you can support them. But it also made me think about, we're talking about this, but what are these other ways in which we just glance over something, a person, an issue a person might be struggling with. Could be an actual physical difference, physical disability, or other things. And I think that was the first time that I actually kind of stepped outside of myself and thought, what are the ways in which our society either welcomes or does not welcome people who are different, or people who might need an extra hand or something like that.
For sure.
And so that was I think that was a really important takeaway for me from that early on period, not just the respiratory illness or reasons why people would be super sensitive to it, but just the other ways in which we've just taken for granted that, they'll figure it out. But is it their job to figure this out? Isn't their job enough that they've got to do what they need to do to be healthy or to fit in or whatever? How can we make that easy? How can we, make this a society for everybody? Right?
Yes. And I think I am at fault for that. That is something that really was enlightened for me during this time period. And my brain, I had a lot of undoing to do and then redoing. And I think I still am. And one of those is, I used to go to work. I'm a teacher. I used to go to work sick all the time.
Oh, girl. Yeah. And we prized ourselves. Like, absolutely. I'm sick as a dog and I'm here because I'm a good worker.
Yeah.
I'm a good worker. I'm a good cog in the machine.
Right.
That's basically what we're saying. Yeah.
I have a memory of sitting on my stool up on the front of my classroom, and I had like cough syrup sitting next to me and like a Sprite. And I was like hacking my lungs up.
And tissue.
And I was like, and yes, I had a box of tissues and I couldn't stand because I felt so bad. And we're reading Macbeth and I'm sitting there, you know, and I did that 7 times. Like the number of kids that I fumigated with my sickness and how I thought that I was doing the right thing and that people praised me. Like, well, thanks for coming in, you know.
Yeah. We don't have to cover your classes or whatever. Yeah, I know. That was that. I mean, it's where I see kind of a move back towards that, but that was one of the things that I began to, you know, they said if you're sick, stay the hell home, which is common sense, but as my grandmother, great grandmother used to say, common sense ain't. You know, and it's true, right? So yeah, but that idea that, you know, being lauded for dragging your sick ass into work, probably making half the other people there sick, not doing a great job because you're sick, and also not getting better.
Right. The only thing that it benefits is the machine with which I am a cog.
The grind.
There's no other benefit.
That's exactly right. And that's why they built up this whole ethos of, yes, yay, rah, 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 coming in sick. Because they don't care if other people get sick. They don't care if you don't, it takes you longer to get better. They just want that cog in there, just, you know, chugging along. What if any
of my kids had autoimmune diseases, which I'm sure some of them did. What if some of them had sick parents? Or sick family members
or babies.
Yeah. And I'm just hacking up all over them. I mean, it's just, I look back at it, I am disgusted that I unconsciously bought into the system and was so proud to do that.
Oh yeah. I had pseudoephedrine, I had Zyrtec, I had all these different things, and if you took one, it made me sleepy. But if I took one of those and I took 2 of the Sudafeds, then I could kind of keep on even keel. And then if I really needed a little oomph, I'd take a third pseudoephedrine, and that kind of stuff, and cough lozenges, and all, just so you can drag through the day. Wow. Probably staying sick much longer than you would have if you just stayed home and laid in bed. But so I think that was a major takeaway that I don't know if our society's actually internalized. I mean, it worked for a moment. What are your thoughts? Do you think that?
I think it's easy to slip back into the siren's call of capitalism, and I know that I am forever changed.
I am, I am for sure. So good. So, I have to say, when going to Zoom, and I know a lot of people suffered from Zoom fatigue and things like that, but when we started going back into the office and having face-to-face meetings, I began to realize, okay, here we're going to have a meeting at 10 a.m. That means at 8 I've got to get up, shit, shower, shave, get in my car.
Did you say shit, shower, and shave?
Yeah, shit, shower, shave. You never heard that?
Oh my God.
I think that's an army thing. Shit, shower, shave.
I love you so much.
I think it's an army thing.
But
you know what I mean? You have to get up, you've got to do the things, get in your car, drive for anywhere from 10 minutes to maybe 20 to maybe a half hour for your hour meeting, and then get back in your car. And that was one of the things that Zoom showed us, how often we had maybe not meaningless meetings, but how often the meetings that we had could be done much more efficiently on, like in Zoom, something that would normally be an hour meeting by the time everyone got in and chit chat. If people came in early on Zoom, that's fine. But at the time, we'd start doing the thing. And then we'd finish a half hour later, maybe, 30 minutes or 45 minutes later or something like that. But an hour meeting being an hour meeting just because it's always been an hour meeting, face-to-face, doesn't have to be that. It was liberating. I found Zoom was liberating.
I think you're right. I think anytime a system is totally uprooted and thrown into chaos, there's an opportunity to discover things like that I would have never discovered. I would never have known that. But being at a faculty meeting for one of the schools that I work at and that was on Zoom, and me being in my kitchen and cooking my breakfast, oh my gosh.
Yes.
I didn't have to do the 3 S's, shit, shower, and shave. I was in my bathrobe cooking breakfast with the laptop open, listening to what's going on at the school. I mean, it was great.
Yeah. And that also, I'm just going to kind of slide into an adjacent topic. That was also when people began to realize having physical bodies in a place of business was not necessarily the most efficient use of their time, of their labor, of the space, et cetera, et cetera. And so that part, I think, is still kind of being rethought and renegotiated. But there was always, working from home was kind of a luxurious thing that people talked about when they had jumped the system. I work for myself. I work from home. Blah blah blah. And it wasn't. People didn't realize that. I mean, obviously there were. Let me finish the sentence. Sorry. People didn't realize that was possible for them. Obviously, there were so many drawbacks to that. 4 people in the same house, all trying to use the internet, all trying to do work. That's there's a lot of difficulties and challenges that are involved with that. But the fact that a business could have people not in their office and still not only survive but thrive was an eye-opener for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I think what you bring up is a really great point. Like, being trapped at a home with an abuser is not super great. Being trapped in a home that is not safe or or like has mold everywhere or doesn't have air conditioning, like all those things. And there were some things that I think we did learn from COVID that have changed positively the way that I move through life now. And that, so not to discount the horrible things.
I never thought, but thank you for bringing it. And also I remember it was an issue with children, with lunches, with food, because many people, the only consistent meals they got were school lunch and school snacks. So yeah, there's always like at least 2 sides to everything.
For sure.
Yeah.
I worked at a part of our school district. I worked at a food distribution site. The school district partnered with the National Guard, and we partnered with the food bank of our city. And I remember the line being so long. And this person pulled up really, really late after we had given out all the food. And he was in this giant lifted, we live in Texas, but he was in this giant lifted, really expensive truck. And he was so mad and he was screaming at me because he didn't get any food. And I remember looking up at him because he's like very high up in this giant lifted truck that's very expensive. And I remember just thinking like, the world is so different. Like, he purchased that truck when the world was one way, and now the world is another way. And now this man is like screaming at me, this 5'2" petite woman, on the side, and I'm standing on the side of the road, and he is so upset because of the situation.
Yeah.
Like, what? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, it flipped, but it wasn't like this even, okay, everything that was this is now that. There were all of these not minor, I don't want to say minor, but all these variations on how the world changed, and it all depended on your situation, right? And there's there's 2 of us here, and we can speak about our experiences and what we know of our friends, but I would imagine for every person that's in our state alone, there's at least a story there that's going to be different from mine.
So with that in mind, how would you feel about sharing some of the positive things that we've noticed? Because when the system gets shaken up, it helps me see things in a different way, and that helped me see that things could be changed positively for a different.
Yes, yeah, for sure,
okay.
For sure. So one thing, like you were talking about being able to participate in your meetings, wearing your bathrobe and cooking your breakfast. What I learned was how driven I was to do stuff that I'm sure there's a reason. I mean, I didn't like make up all of these things that I had to do. I had to do them for various reasons. But the fact that I, quote unquote, had to do them, obviously I didn't have to do them because the next week we weren't doing them, and life went on, for me at least. And so, there was a kind of relaxation for me of all of my shoulds. That's it, all of my shoulds. And so one of the things I noticed on the outline that you have is something about long, slow mornings. And I would start my day on my back porch. I would just sit. I had a deck chair. I still do. A lounge chair. I'd sit out there. And as the sun rose, this Texas spiny lizard would come out and climb up on my tree and get into the sunspot to where the sun was. And he would sit there. And because I'd been there for a while, I don't know if he realized I was there or didn't care or whatever, because I'm behind screens. And he'd sit there and I'd sit there and that was in with my cup of coffee, and that was a beautiful morning.
That was whenever I learned first that I really enjoyed long, slow mornings too. I just had never done it.
Yeah, because normally you're at school or whatever, and then in the summer you're filling your summer up with all the stuff that you didn't have
things to do. But I didn't realize how much I enjoyed just putting around and slowly making my morning tea and slowly cooking and slowly putting the dishes up and just moving at a pace that my body and my mind and my spirit pushed me to move instead of being pushed externally.
Yes, yeah. Isn't that lovely? That's lovely. I also realized I had thought I had started to begin to change this, but for a good, I'd say 2/3 of my life, I thought I was an extrovert. And I realized I do have extrovert 10 characteristics that had been honed by the fact that I was a teacher and a choir director and all of these different things. So the extroverted parts of me were the parts that got the most practice and refinement and polish, et cetera, et cetera. And the introverted parts rarely got any love. And during COVID, that's when I began to start loving on the introverted parts. That the fact that we were kind of isolated was not the hardship it was for me. It was not the hardship for me that it was for other people. My understanding, because I began to realize, hey, I kind of like me, whoever me might be, and spending more time figuring out who me might be, who I
might is.
Yeah, who I might be. If given the time.
Who me is.
Who me is. Who is me?
Who is me?
Who is me?
I is me.
I is me. So that was a real gift for me, is just being able to just spend time with myself and not feel guilty about it. Not feel like I should be really on my computer, or I should be writing somebody, or I should be talking to someone on the phone or whatever. To just kind of like sit on my fat happy ass.
Yes.
And just sit there. I mean, not maybe breathe, maybe read, but just sometimes just sit there and stare at the Texas spiny lizard.
Can I jump onto that?
Yeah, please.
My experience was super similar. And that's whenever I learned handstands. Because I was forced out of that extroversion that I do really embody. I am so community oriented, and I love that. It's something I love about myself. And COVID lockdown took that away from me in a way that was really painful and really hard. And one of the things that it did for me was it put me by myself. And since I can't do what I partner dance and I do partner acro, I do things in community. And then I was by myself with the floor and the wall.
Well, which are great if you want to do handstands.
And I don't think I would have ever learned a handstand had it not been for being trapped in my house.
Wow.
And so because of that, I started my handstand journey.
Oh my, I don't think I realized that. Oh my gosh. Wow. And look at where you are. I mean, I have videos of you doing handstands in the middle of a river.
You do. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're thinking if COVID hadn't occurred, you would still be doing obviously acro and dancing, but you would never have taken up handstands?
To
the extent that you did.
I don't think I would, because I think I would have been transfixed with the joy and the pleasure of things that I get from interaction, and I would have been lured away from that.
Gotcha. Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. That's a powerful.
I mean, other people did sourdough. You
did handstands.
I did handstands.
You eventually did sourdough.
I did years later, but that's because of my work wife. So
okay. Yeah.
So another thing is intentional connection and being more intentional with how I allocate my energy, because like we had said earlier, anytime a system is shaken up, it's an opportunity to look at the pieces as I figure how things are going to be in this new way, this new place, this new world.
Yeah, and I felt this was, I think we've talked over the years about having people in our lives that are not necessarily the most supportive of our journeys, et cetera, et cetera. And COVID was a wonderful opportunity to allow a lot more space in those relationships. And so I wouldn't say I necessarily dropped people, but I began to realize, okay, you only have, particularly now that I'm discovering all these other aspects of myself, you only have but this much bandwidth that you're going to put through the effort of, okay, either creating a Zoom meeting or figuring out how you can get together and, safely distance and all this kind of stuff. So since you don't have a whole lot of energy to do this, who are you going to do it with? And how is this going to take place? And, some people definitely, I made that a priority to be with them. Because, you have to do all of these steps now to figure that out. You couldn't just like, hey, coming over. And then some people just, dropped lower and lower and lower in just the frequency that I saw them, because I wasn't going to expend energy in a way that was, I'm just giving, getting nothing in return.
Yeah. I really resonate with that. It was very startling to realize that instead of, for example, going to ritual and walking into a room and seeing 30 people and then feeling like I made some sort of connection with all 30 just by sharing space with them. Well, now I'm like, who am I going to connect with? Because I can't walk into a room. So who am I going to use that time and energy for?
Yeah. So, I think, and I think it was useful because it allowed for a great deal of reflection. And also this is going to sound kind of maybe contradictory to what we've just been talking about, because we've been talking about, social distancing and masking and all that. One of the other things I've learned was to not become too obsessive about this, because people were driving themselves crazy with, I was in the room with somebody and I don't know if we were 4 or 5 feet apart, and it turned out later that they had COVID. And so now maybe looking back, maybe I was anxious and I was assuming it. I don't know. But for the most part, I remember thinking, okay, look, we've got some kind of rules, regulations that were constantly changing. So, I began to just say, okay, let's figure out what we can do, and then do that, and then try not to worry about, like, enjoy the life that we have, and not fill up the life that we have with worries about it. So maybe I need to look back at my attitudes and that, because I'm certainly not doing that right now. But yeah. Shall we talk about about our circle?
Yeah, I think so.
So as I said, very quickly, that first month, we actually wasn't our regularly scheduled ritual, but we had a small ritual. It was I think a healing ritual on Zoom. And thereafter the next time we got together, the next month, so that would have been March. In April, we actually had a planned Zoom meeting. Oh, was that Beltane with fire? Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
So I am really proud. Our circle pivoted really quickly, and I felt a real sense of solidarity as we all figured out together that we wanted to respect the idea of not getting together. And so we were having ritual, and we have like a singing time before ritual. And we had both of those over Zoom. And that's where we coined the term sacred cacophony.
Yes.
Because if anybody has ever tried to sing over Zoom,
it doesn't work.
Because of the lag, you can't do things
in real time.
Yeah.
What we would do is have one person kind of lead and everybody else sing muted. But then we discovered there was this kind of emptiness to that. And so we said, well, let's maybe do the last verse, everyone go off mute, and we're just going for it. And that's what we called sacred cacophony.
Because it was just untimed.
Everybody at different...
Just everybody at a different time singing. And it was so weird because it was absolutely cacophonous. And it also filled a deep need that I had.
It We didn't do it. We didn't do it every single time. We didn't do it all the time. Usually it was like one last verse, but you're right. It did feel, because I was often the one singing, and I felt like, kind of like with the podcast, singing out into the void, right? Yeah. And you see pictures of mouths moving, and it's like, but are they really, And then they'd come off mute, and it's like, oh, there's their voice, and I could hear like individual voices at different times, but I could hear those voices, and beloved voices, yeah.
So then we also shifted to doing our rituals over Zoom, which it took us a while to figure out how to do that, the roles that we needed, in addition to roles that are what we needed in person. And we can talk about that in just a second. But also we were then doing ritual from our own homes. And so we were separated from each other, but connected energetically. And during this one Beltane ritual, this one woman was supposed to be tending a fire. And we were using that fire as a portal for this Beltane fire energy. And so she had set up her laptop to be facing the fire so that she could be tending the fire while we're all doing this ritual work. So people would be talking and leading the ritual, but the fire was pinned so that it would be what we would all see. So we're like really rolling with the times here. Like we're really like, I thought we were really like cutting edge of like witchcraft in the age of COVID. So she has the camera facing the fire, and ritual starts going, and she starts going, and she's my sister, so I'm going to speak for her, and she can get mad at me if she wants. But my view of what happened is she was persuaded by the energy of the fire. And she kept stoking the fire. And before we know it, like from where I was, because I wasn't with her because we were social distancing, all I can see on this screen is just this giant fire. I can't see anything else. Like there's just this fire. And then every once in a while I'd see like a blur of her running between the camera and the fire. And she stoked the shit out of that fire.
Yes, she did. And we might have stoked that fire too,
Right?
So like...
Yeah, and we're like sending energy over Zoom to that fire, and that fire is just going.
I remember thinking at the time, until I actually did see, like you said, it was her hand or something between the laptop, the camera on the laptop and the fire. I actually was getting concerned that the laptop was too close to the fire. And we'd lose the laptop soon. I mean, because it just looked like a conflagration. Yeah. It just, it was just, damn.
Yeah.
But it was, and so one of the things I loved about a lot of the rituals that we did on Zoom was that we created the energy in our rooms, and we kind of linked that energy. So we often, we did one that was in bathtubs, and we took aspects of our places that we loved, and often we'd sit in front of those so people could see that, and we could bring that energy that we normally wouldn't have, because we'd be all in a different place. We'd all be at this one location, so we could bring all of these different types of energy in there. And that was one of the aspects that I just really loved, how that was part of our focus, that it wasn't a drawback. It became maybe an advantage, or at least an energetic charge.
Yeah, one of the women in our circle called it together but separate. And I thought that was, she really blew my mind with that, because we were able to do these things together, but we were separate, and in like my living room or in my bedroom, places that I would have never done group ritual.
Right. Exactly.
And we also learned, can you help me remember? Because we learned that we needed a couple of different roles. So we would have like a tech priestess.
We'd have a tech priestess, and then I think we just had someone. So we'd have a tech priestess who was actually handling the Zoom tech, and then we'd have someone who everyone would have her phone number, and she'd have a text. So if something happened and they got knocked off, there was one person who, because we'd start getting caught up in the ecstasy, and we wouldn't be paying attention, and so we have one person who was still remaining linear, and they could contact if something was going wrong. So yeah, we definitely that. And I'm trying to think, there was something else, but I can't remember. It might have just been setting up and making sure everything worked.
And we also, there were a couple of rituals where we would distribute things in person ahead of time. So you would go pick something up from a person's porch or something, so that people would have supplies. So that was a cool, like, connecting thing as well. And like you mentioned, it both drove me bananas and also titillated me that we would crash Zoom all the time. And it always happened during our energy raisings.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. Zoom was just not ready for a bunch of witches. Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, fair. It's kind of like Hogwarts, right? You couldn't have electronics around witchcraft, so there you go. I mean, we didn't make this shit up.
Yeah.
So there we go. So let's talk a little bit about the impact of maybe these are the ways that we kind of punted and we made the separation work for us. But what are some of the impacts of the separation, of the isolation, the shutdown on our circle?
So I think one of the easiest things to see is our circle got much smaller. And we've also been slow to reopen. I think there's been some positives to that smallness. It's allowed us to do more intimate work, allowed us to, I think, be more focused and to be really careful with how we move forward with opening.
Yes, I totally agree. I think when we were much more open, we had so many more challenges with negotiating different energies of women, and because we're being so very, I don't want to say selective, but in a way it's kind of, we're really, trying to read energy and trying to make sure that it's good, not that it's that they're going to fit in with us, but that we're going to be a good fit for them too. So I think that's always been a focus, but has become really, really imperative.
I think I still have some deep wounds from people that left, or a realization of a lack of alignment between in relationship that I had perceived prior to COVID, and that COVID allowed me to shine a different light so I could see it.
Yeah, it was enlightening in a lot of different ways, positive and things that was useful feedback. Not necessarily nice, something that we wanted to hear, but something that probably it was useful for us to hear. Yeah. Oh, I'd like to speak too, because, as Texas has gotten much more, I only speaking for our state, has become a lot more sanguine about all of the restrictions and getting it out. There's still some people who are very, very concerned. And I think 10 years ago, that would have been their problem. And that, again, as you'd mentioned about COVID and ableism, making us so much more aware that their problem is our problem, right? And so we have some women who really want us to be very, very careful about, reintroducing, or not reintroducing, but
about how we choose to gather.
Yes,
and share space.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
And the procedures that we have in place to keep that safe for ourselves and the people that we go home to.
That's put so beautifully. And I think in the past, because it was one person as opposed to the rest of, even though we're consensus based, but one person, it would probably be, whatever. But now we've become much more sensitive to, when one person's not comfortable, none of us are really comfortable. Or if we're in true relationship, if one person's not comfortable, none of us are comfortable. So I think that has been a part of the COVID that's kind of ripped some of the scales off of my eyes.
I would agree with that. I think another thing that really blew my mind is I would have told you Zoom ritual planning would be an absolute no for me. I need to, as an extrovert, as an energy person, as someone who is ecstatic in my practice, I need to be I need to share space with people. And now when ritual planning happens, I'm like, oh man, it's not on Zoom. Just because it's so convenient, and we can meet and we can plan and we can open up a shared Google Doc.
Girl, I'm telling you.
I love it.
It's like bim bam boom, and I mean some good work done, not half-assed work, but some good work being done in half the time. And yeah. So we've learned how to navigate things that were a lot more challenging. We've kind of eliminated some of the challenges and learned. And then sometimes we feel like, we really do need to be together. And that's a thing, and that's fine. But yeah, I think COVID has helped us to figure out what is imperative in terms of meeting face to face, and what is done just as well not.
Agreed.
So, shall we talk about this is our poem, but it's not really a poem. It's actually a set of lyrics. You want to talk a little bit about this?
So as I said, I'm an extroverted, ecstatic witch, and a lot of my practice is an ecstatic practice involves around dancing. And so being separated from my dance community and not being able to go out to my favorite dance club where me and some of the other women in our circle would go, and we would have ritual on the dance floor without anyone around us really knowing what we were doing. It was really hard to be separated from that ecstatic experience, from the bass and from the lights. And one of my favorite artists, his name is Armin van Buuren. In 2022, he released the song called "We Can Dance Again," and I remember listening to it and sobbing because I think there's a part of me that trivializes how important my body movement is. It is a sacred practice for me. So, like, oh, you can't go dance in your club, like, wah, wah. But, like, for me, it is a sacred expression of my sacred vessel of my body moving and being in time with people around me.
Right.
And so this song really embodied it for me. And I also really appreciate it as a time capsule because this song could only be written in 2020.
Yeah. 2022.
2022. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's called "We Can Dance Again" by Armin van Buuren. There was once a time when the world was filled with sickness and despair, and clouds seemed to loom over the dance floors. We lived in darkness, with no connection to the music. All seemed to be lost, with no end in sight.
But now, over the horizon, we see hope. The sun is shining once again onto our fate. Once again, we can stomp our feet and clap our hands and rejoice in the sound. Once again, we can see our friends and hug them with delight.
And all through the night, we can move our bodies. Like flowers, we bloom when the music pours onto our skin. We can move, we can breathe, we can love, we can dance again. We can dance again.
We can dance in the oceans. We can dance on the walls. We can dance in slow motion. We can dance till we fall. We can dance with a stranger, or we can dance with our friends.
We can dance in our minds where the music never ends. We can dance on the mountains where the rhythm takes us higher. We can dance in the streets on our way to Ushuaia. Nothing can stop us ever again. As long as we've got music, the night will never end. We can dance again.
We can dance again.
We hope you have enjoyed the magic that has unfolded here at Witchy Wit.
It would be great if you would help make Witchy Wit possible and get access to exclusive content by donating on Patreon.
We'd love it if you join our Witchy community and enjoy shareable content on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Would you do us a big favor and support us by rating and reviewing us wherever you get your podcasts? It's free and helps witchy folks find us.
Feel free to email us at witchywitpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from our community. Reach out and let us know what's brewing in your cauldron.
New episodes are released every second and fourth Friday. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so our episodes go right to your playlist. You can listen as you ride your broom.
Stay witchy, y'all!